Okay, today's recording is going to be quite weird. The main picture that you see is from a previous video. The picture of the dog is from my actual ride, and the voice is from the actual ride. So what we got here is a trip on a very cold day with wind that was at 25 miles per hour. Sometimes I couldn't even hardly move. I was moving like 6 or 7 miles per hour at full power trying to go forward. What ended up happening was that when I finished, I had gone 13 miles and I had used up down to 22% of my battery. So it was a very big struggle on the bike. So what we're going to do here in this video is give you the actual voice for the ride and show you my dog video, which is the actual video of the dog. So you'll get the sound from the dog video and you will get the of course dog video, but the dog video is pretty terrible to look at, so I put another video so that we could have something else to look at besides a tire and a dog and a pet trailer. So the main point was to get the point across of what was going on. So the point of this video is still there. So and I didn't want to do it over. That was a rough day, and it looks like the next 4 or 5 days are going to be pretty bad for e-biking. So anyway, enjoy. Let me know what you think about this format. Was it too irritating to you, or you loved it, or or what? All right, thanks.
I guess it's time to get into today's topic. When you see a trail and it has a sign, "No motorized vehicles allowed," does that mean you? If you are on a Class 2 e-bike? No. It doesn't mean you. A Class 2 e-bike is a bicycle, not a motorized bicycle. It's just a plain bicycle. On my ride today, I plan to discuss the California new bike laws that took effect at the beginning of the year. Therefore, most of the time that I say illegal, what I really mean is that it's not classified as a bicycle. Being classified as a bicycle is the most important part for me in riding an e-bike. There are so many things where definitions change, and trying to keep up with the change is just crazy. For example, I used to think that a vaccination meant a biological preparation that provides active acquired immunity to a particular infectious disease. But now it just means some drug that Big Pharma can make millions selling. It doesn't have to provide immunity to anything. I'm going to attempt to define some definitions that were not the definition of the words that I learned when I grew up. A motorized bicycle or vehicle. When I get to a trailhead, I frequently see a sign that typically says bicycles are allowed, but motorized vehicles are not. Some people on the trail see an e-bike and immediately think it's a motorized vehicle. I look at the e-bike and I see a motor propelling it, so obviously it's a motorized vehicle. However, a new definition was created for e-bikes. If you meet the definition of a Class 1, 2, or 3, in most cases, e-bike, you are a bicycle. Forget what you think you might be riding. You are riding a bicycle, according to the definition. The law defines it as a non-motorized vehicle, even though you can obviously see that there's a motor. What's a throttle? On e-bikes, I usually see a throttle as a twist throttle, like a motorcycle or a scooter throttle, where the rider twists the grip to control the motor power, or a thumb throttle, where you press a lever or a button with your thumb. These are usually found on the more compact or budget-friendly e-bikes. What does a throttle do? It enables the motor to provide power without pedaling, offering convenience and flexibility. For me, the advantage is the first 3 seconds of movement from a complete stop. For others, it also has the advantage of helping in climbing hills. Or if you have a physical ability that prevents using pedals, you can still take a ride outside. It is also for convenience in traffic or urban environments for quick acceleration. Sometimes you will see the term functional throttle in definitions of classes of bikes. For example, the new California law says that a Class 3 e-bike can't have a functional throttle. So that means if there is a working throttle on your e-bike, you're not a Class 3 e-bike? Well, maybe. But also maybe not. How is that possible? Because of definitions. They define functional differently than what you might have described it as. You can have a throttle that works, therefore, in my mind, functional. However, if it only works to 3.7 miles per hour or 6 kilometers, which is when you can walk beside your bike using the e-bike walk function, then it is still not a functional throttle, even though it is functioning. But they're defining it as a non-functional throttle. They're very confusing in descriptions. You'd think they'd come up with some other name or a different way of describing it. When I first got my e-bike, I wanted to be able to ride on trails made for a standard bike. I wasn't strong enough to ride my standard bike on all trails. Some trails I could, but not all trails, so I needed assistance. I was extremely excited to learn that in most cases, a Class 2 e-bike is considered a regular bike for rural purposes. I immediately purchased a Class 2 e-bike, and my e-bike channel and my adventures began. Not long afterwards, South Carolina passed a law that stated that Class 1, 2, or 3 e-bikes will all be considered bikes for rural purposes. So, if a bicycle is allowed on a trail, then a Class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike would also be allowed on a trail. This was excellent news for me in South Carolina. But what about other states? Well, it turns out that not all states have adopted that standard, but most have. So if I go to a different state, I have to look up what their rules are so I'll know if I qualify or not. In a recent video where I introduced Stitch, my new puppy, I talked about New York City, considering a more restrictive law. I learned about that through my constant looking. I was looking at going to New York for New Year's at the time. I decided not to go there. But anyway, that new legislation, known as Priscilla's Law, would require e-bikes and e-scooter riders to obtain licenses and register their vehicles. This proposal is named after Priscilla Loke, who tragically lost her life in 2023 after being struck by an e-bike in Chinatown. The law aims to enhance street safety and hold riders accountable. They claim that they are requiring registration so they can identify the e-bike rider. But there's nothing proposed that can identify the regular bike rider. Apparently, e-bikes and bike riders both ride on sidewalks in New York City, which is not allowed, and both of them run into pedestrians and drive off. They would like to catch the e-bike riders and make them pay a fine. But the regular bike riders have historically been doing that for decades, so ignoring them is apparently okay. Now, we'll have to admit that in most cases, an e-bike weighs a lot more, and therefore potentially more dangerous when it hits something. So that might be the reason for the distinction. Let's talk about the new law that took effect in California at the beginning of the year. This law basically bans all my e-bikes from their state bike trails, which are 1,856 miles of rail trails, 4,752 miles of bikeways, and 33,683 miles, at last count, of bike trails. If I decide I want to ride any of my e-bikes, I got 3, but just any of the e-bikes in California, I will have to register it, put on a helmet, buy a license and insurance, and put on brake lights and turn signals. That's just really crazy. California Governor Gavin Newsom signed into law SB-1271, which redefines and adds several electric bicycle regulations in the state. Chief among them is the clarification of the 3-class e-bike system, which mainly means that throttle-enabled electric bike currently available and on the road in California that currently are there are no longer street legal. If your e-bike does not qualify as a class 1, 2, or 3, then you must register it with the Department of Motor Vehicles. You need to get a license. You have to have liability insurance. And you're going to be restricted to public roads and prohibited from using bike paths and trails. This also means you're going to have a brake light and you'll have to have turn signals. So your e-bike can be an e-bike in South Carolina, but when you go to, in my case, when I go to California, it will no longer be an e-bike. So in South Carolina, it's an e-bike, and in California, it's not an e-bike. So let's examine what the new law in California gives as a definition of an e-bike. If your e-bike doesn't meet any of these 3 classes, you can no longer refer to your e-bike as an e-bike, when you're in California anyway. Instead, it's going to be called a motorized bicycle. And you don't want it to be called a motorized bicycle. You want it to be called an e-bike. Now, I don't know if I'm going to remember all this stuff properly, but let's give it a shot. A Class 1 e-bike is defined as pedal assisted only, meaning no throttle, no functional throttle, with assistance up to 20 miles per hour. Those are basically called a bicycle. A Class 2 e-bike. You can have a throttle, and it will assist up to 20 miles, or can assist up to 20 miles per hour, but not after that. In fact, you can't go any faster than that. And those are allowed on the bike paths. A Class 3 e-bike cannot have a functional throttle. Remember my definition earlier of a functional throttle? Yeah, that's when it becomes important. What is a functional throttle? Anyway, a Class 3 e-bike cannot have a functional throttle. It's pedal assisted only, and it can assist up to 28 miles per hour. These e-bikes, the Class 3, are allowed on the on-street bike lanes. So, it's the bike lanes that are actually on the street. But they are typically prohibited from the multi-use bike paths unless a specific ordinance allows it. So you can't take it on bike trails. Without permission. So Class 1 and Class 3 e-bikes are bicycles equipped with a motor that provides assistance only when the rider is pedaling. It's not capable of exclusively propelling the bicycle. However, when they say that, they don't really mean that. What they mean is there's an exception to that rule. And that rule is that if you have a throttle, and that throttle has a walk button that can power the bike up to 3.7 miles per hour, or 6 kilometers per hour. 6 kilometers is important because it's a regulation used in most of the European countries. That's the walking speed throttle. And it can essentially be used to slowly roll the bike under its own power. Usually for just repositioning, maybe to walk up a particular difficult hill. So under the new California law, Class 1 and Class 3 e-bikes with throttles can only be powered by the throttle up to 3.7 miles per hour. This new law also removes the word continuous from the legal definition. Before, an electric motor could be 750 watts of continuous power. They have removed the word continuous, and so now it cannot exceed 750 watts of power at any point in time. The continuous power is the amount of power a motor can output indefinitely without overheating. However, most, if not almost all, of the 750 watt batteries that are currently being sold, 750 watt motors that are currently being sold can have a higher output for a short period of time than 750 watts. So every single one of those would not meet Class 1, 2, or Class 3. So pretty much if you have a 750 watt motor, you're banned from California. The current motors. I believe that I found that they said that 90% of the batteries of the motors that are rated at 750 watts can, for a short period of time, output something greater than 750 watts. And all of my bikes do that. All of mine will output more than 750 watts when you go up the hill. I'm not sure how much more. One of them says it will output 750 watts, but it does do more, even though it doesn't say it does more. And that's where it's going to get a lot of people who currently have a bike in California. And the fact that they will have, if they have a 750 watt motor, they're probably no longer a bicycle. Instead, they won't meet class 1, 2, or 3, and now they'll have to register their bike, get insurance, liability insurance anyway, and put blinking lights on their thing, turn signals, and a brake light. If your top speed can get over 28 miles per hour, you will also be disqualified. But I kind of figure that any bike that can get past 28 miles per hour has already exceeded the 750 max watt requirement. So once you've been classified as not an e-bike, so you no longer can be called an e-bike if you don't meet any of the 3 requirements, you're now a motorized bicycle, or you're a moped, and you're not permitted on any of the bike paths or multi-use trails. So the California sellers will be forced to sell bikes with a classification sticker on it, telling people what class they are. They've been doing that anyway for a while. But now in California, they have added the modification wording, which basically states that if a manufacturer makes a class 2 e-bike, for example, but it can be modified by the user, the person who buys the bike, then you cannot sell it. Selling it now is illegal. And that includes even if you can remove the pedals. So they can't sell an e-bike as a class 2 and then have the intention for you to modify the e-bike so that after your modification it no longer falls in a class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike. So Super 73 is currently being sued. They got a lawsuit that started like the first day that you could start a lawsuit in 2025. They're being sued because it's a manufacturer in California and people can easily modify their bikes to be something other than a class 1, 2, or 3. It will be interesting to see how this lawsuit turns out. Now the question is, will they really enforce these laws if I go to California? Only time will tell how much they will enforce these laws on out-of-state people, or in-state people for that matter. They probably won't know which we are, but just riding down the street. What is this likely to mean for the rest of the country? First, let's define California as the 5th largest economy in the world and the #1 buyer of e-bikes, followed by Hawaii, Utah, Colorado, and Washington. In the United States, not to mention the 40,000 miles of bike-related trails that I have been banned from, and most likely you've also been banned from. So part of the reason why California has the largest buyer of e-bikes is because they have 40,000 miles of bike-related trails that you could ride on. Except now you can't ride on them unless you can still classify your bike as a class 1, 2, or 3. And we pretty much have eliminated every single bike that currently or is made that has 750 watts of power. I'm thinking that this is not good for the e-bike world. The regulations are getting too confusing for too many people, And that certainly isn't good. Why are they not allowing the throttle ability to 28 miles per hour? Why are they even restricting total miles per hour to 28 miles per hour? Why not 30 or 38 or 50 or even unlimited? Let's see if I can share some insight on these issues. E-bike laws are rooted in safety, infrastructure compatibility, and regulatory consistency. Safety concerns are probably the main point. Excessive reliance on throttles, especially at higher speeds, can increase the risk of accidents due to reduced rider engagement and control because you don't pay as much attention. I can understand that. But the same point can be made for cars where you just push down on the pedal or you use your cruise control and your attention decreases greatly. But yet they can go over 28 miles per hour. Requiring pedaling for speeds up to 28 miles per hour is really just a compromise that balances the benefits of an e-bike with safety, infrastructure limitations, and regulatory needs. It ensures that the e-bike remains accessible while minimizing the risk and maintaining their integration into the existing transportation system. Which basically means that a lot of the infrastructure that we are using for bike lanes was created for bicycles. And if you get something that exceeds the bicycle capability too greatly, it will not have a safety factor in the trail. So when they created it, they said, well, if somebody's going 20 miles per hour down here, what type of things do we need? What type of corners should we have? What type of view do we need to see in the future so that you don't run over people as you travel along? And so they set it up for 20. And then if you're going 28, you now, some of the safety features they built into the road won't be helping. So they want to restrict that down so that it stays closer to what a bicycle can do instead of what an e-bike can make it up to, or a motorized vehicle can make it up to. So this ensures that e-bike remains accessible while minimizing, I guess, reducing the risk and able to keep all of their existing transportation systems for bicycles. And this also preserves the unique position of an e-bike that is a blend of a bicycle and a motorized vehicle. Higher speeds with throttle-only operation can make the bike harder to control, especially for the less experienced riders. So when they're creating this law, they're looking at a parent buying a e-bike for a kid who's like 12. And they're like not very knowledgeable about rules of the road. And therefore they're getting killed because they don't know the rules of the road. So they're trying to eliminate the speed without having multi-tier child-only and adult-only bikes. So they're saying all bikes, all e-bikes, have to meet these certain requirements. So if you're moving at 28 miles per hour without pedaling, you pay less attention to your environment. I have actually seen people who said that they can't talk and pedal at the same time. that they need to either stop pedaling and then talk, or pedal and not talk. So you can see that those people believe that there is a potential of reducing your ability to pay attention to everything that's going around, and having a difference between pedaling and using the throttle. So the reason that they have you pedal to 28 because they believe that's going to make you pay more attention. And I think it will make you pay more attention. Not sure if it'll be that much more, but I can agree with more attention. And also, if you are traveling along at a speed of 20 versus 28, and you hit something like a person or a tree or even a pothole, the collision will be substantially more at 28, so they would prefer you not to ever go faster than 20. But they're doing a compromise and allowing you to go 28 if you're pedaling. If they had their way, the safety people would not let you go faster than 20. The next area I want to talk about from this is infrastructure. Bike lanes and the share use paths are designed for the standard or traditional bicycle, which typically travels at speed closer to 15 to 20 miles per hour. The throttle only operation at 28 miles per hour would disrupt other users and cause safety issues. On share path with pedestrians, throttle speeds of 28 can create dangerous interactions. Now what the thing is, I keep saying, well, if you're throttling or pedaling, you're still going 28 miles per hour. But I can see their point. What their point is, you shouldn't go faster than 20 miles per hour. But enough people are saying, let us go 28, that they decided, okay, we'll let you go 28, but you're going to have to pedal. Because that'll force you to pay a little bit more attention. And it also means that you have the ability to pedal. So that's what they're trying to accomplish, a little bit of that. And they don't want you to hit pedestrians at 28. That's a whole lot worse than hitting them at 20. All right, the next area is regulatory consistencies. They want you to be different than a moped or a motorcycle. So by limiting the throttle speeds to 20, e-bikes remain distinct from a moped and a motorcycle, which require the licensing, registration, insurance, etc. The distinction between a Class 2, throttle up to 20 miles per hour, and Class 3, pedal assisting up to 28 miles per hour, simplifies the enforcements and ensures the e-bike aligns with existing traffic laws. The next area is risk perception. Not actual risk, but the perception of risk and what the general public accepts. I mean, a lot of people hate e-bikes, so there's frequently compromises because of that. Public opinion. Allowing a 28 mile per hour throttle speed creates resistance from non-cyclists and local governments who see e-bikes as unsafe or disruptive as they get to a higher speed. So once again, they don't want you to even go 28, but they're allowing you to get up to 28. They prefer you to go 20. Insurance and liability. For faster throttle speeds, it will lead to increased accidents, raising liability concerns and therefore starting even more regulations than what they currently are doing, like the regulations that they're starting in New York City that we talked about earlier. There's other arguments, but I consider almost all these arguments weak, except for maybe the attention span thing. See, all these arguments get made, and we end up with the rules that we end up with. It seems as time goes on, more rules are going to be implemented. People feel like they need to implement rules. Therefore, the more reckless we drive our e-bikes, and the public sees us riding recklessly, the more likely some new regulation is going to be implemented to attempt to stop that perceived risky behavior. It's not whether it's actually risky, it's whether or not the non-bike riders perceive it as risky, and they are the majority of the populace. I'm told by several e-bike channels that I should not be concerned that there will not be any enforcement of the new laws. So I should just break the law at will, since they will not be enforcing them. I ask, why would they pass laws that they plan to ignore? Well, they are politicians, and politicians are weird, so who knows? I certainly don't know. I would prefer it if they didn't pass laws that they don't plan to enforce. So I'm going with the theory that they plan to enforce the law that they just passed. And if any of my e-bikes get caught on any of the 40,000 miles of bike-related paths in California, I would probably get a fine of some sort and maybe even have my e-bike confiscated. I tried to cover a lot of the different issues here. I have a lot more I could talk about, but I'm thinking we need to end this. This is plenty long enough. And my trip to California, where I had planned to rent a van and drive out to California and spend a week out there with my brother, has currently been put on hold. Well, I wasn't planning on going to March anyway, but it's currently being put on hold. I'm not planning it anymore because I want to find out whether they are enforcing it or if they end up passing another law to allow grandfather clause in that it's only if you buy a new bike you have to meet these, and they're going to let the older bikes that are already out there not worry about it, because there's a lot of 750 watts bikes already in California, and every one of them are now no longer allowed to be on any of the 40,000 miles of e-bike area, bike lanes. So I figure these people are probably going to complain, and maybe something will happen where they'll get grandfathered in. At least I'm hoping for that. And if that does happen, I'll restart up my plans. Maybe I'll go in June instead, or maybe May. So anyway, I wanted to make sure y'all got caught up on that. And if you want to get any future updates that I may or may not do, please like and subscribe. I have been losing a lot of subscriptions lately because either I'm a terrible person and people are unsubscribing, or I put out so few videos that people are tired of waiting, so they unsubscribe. So at this rate, I'm going to hit 900 before I hit 1,000. But anyway, it's okay. I just do this to help people out. It's not to help me out in any form or fashion. So, if you have any questions or any concerns, talk to me. I'll try to answer them best I can. I mean, some of these things, I don't know what's going to actually happen. I only have perceptions of what's going to happen. So that's all I can go with. And I can tell you about the current law and what it says. So until next time, see you then. Bye.